Story 1. My sister unexpectedly cut me off. This is my first time posting, so I apologize if this is the wrong subreddit. I am just looking for input or advice about a family situation that happened over Thanksgiving. My 28-year-old female sister, who is 40 years old, suddenly ended our relationship early Friday morning via text after a family Thanksgiving at her house, which included me, my fiancé, her kids, her husband, and our mom. Backstory: over a year ago, my sister gave me some extra pieces of a china set because they did not fit in her cupboard. They were a gift to our mother from our father 50 years ago. Our parents are divorced. Our mother had then given them to my sister. I was happy she gave them to me, as I wanted to have something of my father's, and we never had a very close relationship. Given the age gap with my sister, we were not close growing up and had only become closer when I moved to the city a few years ago. I have always felt criticized and judged by her, but passed it off as her caring about me in an older sister way. Prior to Friday, we had no real issues or arguments. Most recently, she has been very harsh and critical of my fiancé for superficial reasons, expressing her dislike for our mother on several occasions, and making it seem to me that our mother felt the same way about him. To me and my fiancé, she would appear to be pleasant and enjoy our company, only to text me later about things that bothered her about him or the plans we made. My mother and I had noticed increasingly odd behavior from her over the past couple of years, where she became very upset over small issues, and we had to be careful not to mistake or upset her, and be the ones to reach out to resolve the issue. However, we always brushed this off and made excuses for her. So on Thursday night, the china got brought up in conversation. My fiancé made a joke about how the china was in the trunk of my car, and we really had to remember to take it up or bring it to the new storage place, as we had to get a storage unit after we moved recently since the one provided was not enough space and also prone to water damage. We had to throw away several items due to damage, so we got the additional unit. Prior to then, the china was safely stored away. My sister told us to bring it up as it was expensive, and we agreed, as we had been meaning to since the storage change. Conversation moved forward and things seemed to be fine. Friday morning, my fiancé and I woke up to a panicked text message in a group chat to both of us from my sister sent at 1 a.m., saying she had a nightmare that the china was broken and she was very upset. She told me to bring it back over to her house either way because she wanted it back and had made a mistake giving it to me. I usually de-escalate situations with her and am very careful to not upset her. However, this time I responded saying that the china was fine and not broken, and we had brought it back up last night after the reminder. I told her I was not going to give it back because she had a nightmare. She frantically begged for it back, and when I said no, she said, "Then we are done." Her messages were odd and erratic, and I said I did not think she was thinking rationally at that time. She then changed her story to say that I was going to sell it, and she wanted to pass it down to her kids, who are aged under 12. I assured her I had no plans to sell it, and had already had it for over a year. I said if she was worried about it being passed down and staying in the family, she could have just talked to me about it, and I would have been open figuring something out. I did not remember at this time that I only had the extra pieces and she had the rest. Her messages became increasingly hostile, accusatory, repetitive, and did not make sense. She kept repeating she made a mistake and wants it back. She told me that I underestimate how much the china means to her, and that it is important enough for her to stake our relationship on. I told her I would never do something like this to her. She proceeded to kick our mother out of her home in front of the kids, and tell her that she won't be able to make it to family Christmas this year because of this. She dropped our mom off at my fiancé and my place. When our mother arrived, she said that my sister had woken up crying this morning about the dishes, and how worried about them she was, and told our mother that she did not think I was taking care of them. She has not spoken to me or my mother since. Her husband and her have since blocked both me and my fiancé on social media. Part of me wants to try to reach out and talk about it with her more, but I am afraid it would make things worse, and she would not be open to listening to my feelings. The other part of me is shocked and hurt my sister feels China is more important than me. Any insight or advice is appreciated. Thank you to those who read all the way through. I know it is a lot. Rick Russell TX said, "You can't reason with someone who is being unreasonable. She drew her line in the sand, made up stuff, and accused you of saying it or doing it, and then kicked out her mother because, why exactly? Either your sister is having a mental health crisis, or she was looking for an excuse to cut you and your mother out of her life, and found it." Beginning Flight 8774 said, "Your sister had a really irrational response to the situation. In the grand scheme of things, the China isn't that important. It's nice to have as a token or reminder of the past. However, it's stuff. My mom cherished pieces of her parents' china. After mom developed dementia, I gave the china to my cousin, her sister's daughter. I thought mom put so much value in the china and other family heirlooms only to lose them all because I couldn't store them any longer. Plus, it only felt like the right thing to do to give them to my cousin who also cherished them. Let your sister cool down and don't contact her. See what happens. If you want to continue a relationship with her, you may need to have limited contact or gray rock her. She sounds like an unhealthy person to be around." Update. Hi people of Reddit. I have an update from my last post. 6 days after my sister, 40 female, cut me off the morning after we all spent Thanksgiving together as a family because I would not return extra pieces of china set that didn't fit in her cupboard that she gave me over a year ago because she had a nightmare that they were broken. She texted my mother and I in the group chat. She said this was about a lot more than the china, and that it was about her not feeling respected by me, and that we never had a good relationship. She said me not caring about her feelings about the china when she expressed them to me. Her text demanding it back because she had a nightmare was the final straw, and wants me to understand why it feels easier to walk away. I was shocked by this. While we were never super close given the age gap, we always seemed to get along well. I have always tried to be very respectful of her, often going out of my way to do so. For example, my fiancé and I, recently engaged a few months ago, changed the potential date of our wedding because my sister texted me later after initially seeming okay with it, saying how she was upset by it and had issues with it. I responded to her text and said I was very confused and explained why I felt that way, saying I did not know or understand how she felt repeatedly disrespected by me. I said that she did not explain her true feelings with me about the china, and said that I did care about her feelings, but felt hurt by her actions and how she handled the situation, and how her ultimatum chose the china over me. I said that I wished she would have just communicated with me if she ever had any concerns about my intentions, as she implied I used her for things, which I do not rely on her in any way. She then called me. She apologized for texting my fiancé and I at 1 a.m. in case it woke us up. She said she included my fiancé in the text about the china to me because it all started because of him. She said that my fiancé had no right to talk about the china and was sticking his nose where it didn't belong. She was frantic and crying on the phone call. She said my fiancé was to blame for all of this, for talking about the china at Thanksgiving after our mother brought it up. I told her that this was not his fault, and he was just joining the conversation. She then said him talking about the china was him throwing me under the bus to make me look bad, and when I said that wasn't true, she said him talking about it was just so he could tuck up to her to make her like him. I was shocked that she was somehow interpreting things this way. She used other examples of him just making casual conversation as attacks on me or her. She would say that my facial reactions to things he said let her know that I had never heard that before, which is simply not true. My fiancé has been nothing but kind and respectful towards her and her family. He has always been excited to see them and wanted to build our relationship with them. She has been making rude comments to him for a while now. She told me she had just been faking it this whole time and never liked him. She then tried to convince me that he didn't treat me well, but her reasoning did not make sense. At the end, she said that my fiancé was not ever welcome in her home, and she would never do family events with us and our mother ever again if my fiancé is there. I asked her what her issue was with him, and said I would like to know because it must be significant to cause this extreme reaction. She asked if I would break up with him if she told me. I said I thought I deserved to know, and felt it important to take into consideration since it is apparently that bad. She refused to tell me. I am not going to contact her again, but I am at a loss for why she is acting like this. I am still very shocked, confused, and hurt by it all. I am in therapy. I guess the bright side is my mother and fiancé have gotten a lot closer. Thank you to those who read all the way through. Too long, didn't read. My sister said her cutting me off abruptly was never about the reason she originally said, and that it was my fault. Then said it was all my fiancé's fault. Wigum_X said, so she'll only tell you why she dislikes your significant other if you first promise to break up with him, before she tells you? What sort of manipulative bullshit logic is that? I just stepped back, dropped the rope, and let her tantrum alone. Rick Russell TX said, it's my little sister is getting married, and I can't even bullshit. That's what it is. With that, we wrap up story 1. Now, let's move on to story 2. All modifications must be restored to the original. I told this story to a friend. She suggested I share it here. My family and I moved into a house in 2008. 5 bedrooms, 3,200 square feet, $1,600 a month. It was a decent price in 2008, and the rent stayed the same for many years. Since I'm reasonably handy, I would fix things myself rather than bother an old man. I lived there so long that I also made quite a few upgrades. In 2024, the owner passed away and his son inherited the property. A week later, he gave notice of intent to inspect the property. During the inspection, he kept trying to open drawers and look through my belongings, which isn't legally allowed, and he was rude when I stopped him. As he left, he handed me a notice that my rent was increasing to $4,000 a month, about $1,000 over market value. I would have paid higher rent if it had been reasonable, but I wasn't paying that much. My month-to-month lease was worded to require 3 months' notice to raise the rent. I pointed out this fact, then gave him notice that I would be moving out at the end of those 3 months. A few days later, I was served with an eviction notice. The month-to-month lease also required 3 months' notice to evict me without cause, so he tried evicting me with cause. He claimed I had made unauthorized modifications to the house and sided the back door with a dog door installed. I still had the original door in the garage and the previous owner's permission, so it was neither unauthorized nor a modification. Regardless, the judge decided I needed to move out within 30 days or he would grant the eviction. Additionally, he explicitly ordered that all modifications must be restored to the original. This is where the malicious compliance comes in, and I'm sure you already see this coming. All the smart house additions I made were removed. The tool shed in the yard was removed. The pond was filled in. Closet organizers were torn out. Garage organizers were removed. The updated appliances were replaced with basic models. Every update I made was removed, and then I moved out. He sued me for removing everything. His lawyer cited a law saying that any changes to a property become part of the property, and that it's illegal to remove them when vacating. However, my lawyer pointed out the order from the previous judge, which clearly stated, all modifications must be restored to the original. I provided receipts for everything I had removed, proving I had added them, and was legally required to remove them. I won the case, and he had to pay my legal fees. A few months later, I got a call from his sister. Some of my mail hadn't been forwarded, and she wanted to make sure I received it. We had a short conversation about the entire ordeal. She told me the house had actually been inherited by 4 siblings. First, he had raised the rent knowing I would move out. He already had a deal lined up to sell the house to one of those large rental companies. He told his siblings the house had negative equity and that nobody would get anything from the sale. In reality, the house was fully paid off and worth about $700,000. They had made an offer on the house that included all the upgrades and additions I later removed. He couldn't afford to replace everything, so they took him to court over the sale. Since all 4 siblings were listed as owners, all of them were named in the lawsuit, which is how they learned the truth. In the end, the house sold for $550,000. In exchange for not pressing fraud charges against him, his 3 siblings split the proceeds, and he got nothing. Edit: a lot of people ask the same questions. Rather than responding to them individually, I'll post the answers next. Question: how did everything happen so fast after the landlord died? Answer: I guess my wording wasn't clear. I don't actually know when he died. I only talked to the guy once or twice a year. This all started about a week after I was notified of his death in February of 2024. I moved out in early June. We went to court over the removals in September, and I spoke with his sister in December. Everything I posted happened over the span of nearly a year. Question: why did I rent for 17 years instead of buying a house? Answer: I moved into the house during my divorce in 2008. Buying a house during a divorce is not easy. I chose this house because it was large enough for me and my 3 kids and close to their schools. By the time they moved out, I was set in my ways. I planned to buy another place at some point, but was in no rush. Question: how did his siblings not know what he was up to? Answer: I don't know. Everything involving me was my first-hand experience. Everything that happened after that was second-hand information I got from his sister. I can't confirm what she told me. I could only share what she said. Question: why did I do so many upgrades in a rental? Answer: I wasn't tearing out walls or replacing floors. Everything I did was reversible and done to make my life easier. Also, the landlord was retired, never raised the rent, and always gave permission. Even though I was renting, it was my home. Question: why did the judge only give me 30 days to move out? Answer: the eviction process didn't happen overnight. I thought this was obvious, but some people seem confused. From the point that I gave him 3 months' notice to seeing a judge, nearly 2 months had passed. There is a time process that has to be followed. Question: how did I remove everything so quickly? Answer: none of the stuff was difficult to remove. The pond was not a small lake. It was a small 300-gallon hole in the backyard with a few goldfish and plants. It took us about 3 hours to drain and fill it in. The shed was sold to someone who took it away on a flatbed. Organizers were modular. Appliances are simple to replace. The most time-consuming part was replacing all the smart plugs with standard outlets and smart bulbs with regular bulbs. Question: how are we supposed to believe you had all those receipts? Answer: I've been self-employed for 29 years. I keep every receipt because Uncle Sam doesn't mess around when it comes time for an audit. Most receipts come to my email, but I also have a portable receipt scanner for everything else. Question: how would anyone believe the house had negative equity? Answer: again, I can't speak for them, but I can share a personal anecdote. My mother died in 2022. While settling her estate, we discovered that she had a reverse mortgage. Essentially, a company loaned her money with no mortgage payments. In return, they had to be paid back if she died or tried to sell the house. The house wasn't worth enough to pay them off, so we let them take it. Reverse mortgages are prevalent and often predatory. I don't know if he told them this, but it's not far-fetched to believe a house has negative equity. Bed Without Sheets said, I'm glad he got what was coming to him in the end, although some jail time on top wouldn't be unwelcome to the story, but I hope that 30-day eviction didn't seriously mess you up. Original poster. I know how hard that can be. Maladjusted 73, the original poster, said, jail time is still a possibility. They didn't press charges as part of their deal, but the state could still prosecute him if they want to. It's unlikely, though. Moving was a pain, but I probably should have done it years ago. My kids were young when I moved in there. They're adults and on their own now. No reason to live alone in a 5-bedroom house. Cat Lady Enabler said, depending upon where you are, that rent might have easily been good justification for staying put. A 5-bedroom house for that price is unheard of in much of the country nowadays, never mind with all the customizations you added to fit your needs. Maladjusted 73, the original poster, said, the same size and style of house here commonly rents in the $2,800 to $3,000 range. I would have paid that just to avoid the hassle of moving. By asking for $4,000, he made it clear he wanted me to move out. If I had agreed and paid it, he would have found another reason to get me out. It wasn't worth the hassle. With that, we wrap up story 2. Now, let's move on to story 3. This is the priority. A bit of malicious compliance against my awful boss. Some background. Without giving too many details in case one of my coworkers sees this, I've been working as the marketing director for a very small company for the past year or so. This job started out nice enough, but it quickly went downhill when we had about 10 of our 35 full-time staff members quit over the span of a few months. They all left for various reasons relating to the awful bosses, who I will call Stacy, poor management tactics, and her team's attitude. The staffing issue became my issue when I was forced to pick up the slack for everyone who had left. I was being asked to do a number of miscellaneous tasks, some of which I was nowhere near qualified for, all of which took away from my time to do my actual job of marketing. Despite this, Stacy would consistently make a fuss over certain marketing objectives not being completed when she wanted. I would always explain to her that because she had delegated me to do specific work elsewhere, I had no time to do the marketing projects we had brainstormed. She, of course, never listened. As time went on, we lost 5 more staff members, including our secretary. I was moved to cover her position at the front desk full-time for 5 weeks, during which I couldn't get any of my actual job doing marketing done. All of my projects came to a standstill, and we even lost touch with one of our vendors who had been working with us. The minute I was able to return to my own office, Stacy and her team were hounding me for marketing materials that in their minds should have been done by now. I explained to them that as I essentially had a different job for the last 5 weeks, I wasn't allowed any time to work on them. I was beyond frustrated at this point and began looking for other jobs. About 2 weeks ago, I got an offer for a much better company and handed in my notice to Stacy. Stacy was flustered and asked me before I leave to finish a list of projects that she had kept putting off. Specifically, she wanted a project, let's call it Project A, that she had repeatedly pushed to the back burner since December to be done. I was the only one who could do this project and she knew it, and she desperately wanted it done before I left since its completion meant she could put off hiring my replacement for a while. In our meeting, she told me specifically that Project A was the priority, and I was to do no other work until it was completed. Okay. Cue malicious compliance. One of the other reasons why it would sometimes take so long to get certain marketing projects done is because they required Stacy and her team's input and approval. This was mostly for design-related projects. I would make an initial design, get their input of what looked good, change the design, and then wait for them to approve it before sending it off to a printing or manufacturing company. All of this happened over email, and no matter how many reminders I would send, Stacy would always drag her feet in responding. It could sometimes take an entire week to do what should have taken maybe 3 hours. I mentioned this problem to Stacy before, and she again never listened. Well, guess what this final project she wanted me to complete was? A design project. And guess who has spent the last week and a half dragging her feet to respond to my emails about it? Stacy. Now, I could have been working on the other items on the laundry list of work she wanted me to do while I waited for Project A's approval. However, since she explicitly told me Project A was the priority, not a single thing on her list got done. The best part is there is not enough time for me to fully complete Project A now either, since she took so long to respond. I will be handing off to her all the design files, most of which she can't even open since she doesn't have the right software, and then leaving on Tuesday. After that, not my problem. Edit. I broke the acronym rule of the sub, which is why the post said removed. My bad. Change to give the boss a fake name instead. Also, since people are asking, I will update Tuesday after work. Adriana Starfish said. One does wonder how the boss managed to get to the position she is holding at the moment. It's good that you got out of there. I hope you will have a more capable boss at the new company. User HHHHD5 said. Oh, I can tell you that. She founded the company. Actually, co-founded it with her husband, who is just as bad as she is. Their whole extended family and friends work there. It's just blatant nepotism. There are a whole bunch of issues at this place, ranging from the highly immoral to the highly illegal, and I will thoroughly enjoy watching them sink. Update. I'm writing this on my lunch break, where I thought for sure I wouldn't have anything to report to you guys until the end of the day, but this morning was interesting to say the least. First of all, I'll reveal a bit more information about where I work because the context is needed to fully explain. I do the marketing and communications for a small school. Stacy, my boss, is the principal. The work I mentioned in the previous post where I was asked to do things I was nowhere near qualified for was to teach. Very often I would be asked to substitute teach, despite not having the proper qualifications such as licenses or a degree in the subject matter. At one point, I had to cover teaching a class of elementary schoolers with no lesson plan for an entire week because their teacher quit on the spot. Well, today, my last day, I woke up to a number of texts sent at 5 a.m. from my boss asking me to cover again and substitute teach. Absolutely fucking not. Not on my last day will I be doing something completely out of lines with my work, and that quite frankly makes me incredibly uncomfortable. I said no. She said do it anyways. No. I refused to sub today, so I decided to explain a few things to Stacy. Project A still isn't finished. It wasn't going to be finished by the time I left regardless of what I did today because it was so far behind. Again, all because she took a week and a half to respond to an email approving the design. My original plan today was to do as much work on Project A as possible. But if I was asked to substitute teach instead, it looks like that wouldn't be happening. So now, instead of being mostly done, Project A would only be little more than halfway complete when I left. Stacy was not happy hearing all this, but somehow now, she was miraculously able to find an actual substitute teacher. Now for a little additional malicious compliance. Now that Stacy knew Project A wasn't complete, she reiterated to me that it was the top priority, and she wanted me to do only work for Project A today, nothing else. So, I will be doing absolutely nothing else. I was going to create a file in Google Drive with all of my photographs, designs, and other media and give them access. I was going to show one of my coworkers how to log in to do basic edits to our website. I was going to create an Excel sheet with all of the passwords for our various social media accounts, softwares, and other third-party apps. I considered these all basic things to do when leaving a workplace, but now it looks like I'm not allowed to do those. None of these items would have taken me more than 10 minutes, but will wind up taking the school hours, if not days, to reconcile. At 3:15 p.m. exactly, I will be out of here, and then I'm done with them. I'm so excited to leave I've already started packing up my belongings, and I'm being incredibly meticulous and petty about it. All of the pens, staples, and binder clips I bought are going home with me, even if they're in use. I'm taking my plug-in air freshener out of the bathroom. Even the temporary wallpaper I put up is coming down. I can't wait a few weeks from now, when they call looking for access to the pictures I took. Once my last paycheck clears, all those files are going in the trash. I won't even offer them a chance to get them back by paying me a ridiculous consulting fee. As far as I'm concerned, that's their problem, not mine. Edit, I'm out. Good riddance. Shadowsink said. Heh. Regarding the temporary wallpaper the original poster is taking with him. At an old job, we had a vendor in the lobby who was contracted to run a little cafe cart. She sold smoothies, bagels, and other quick food items for staff on breaks. The company decided to cut her contract short and give someone else the spot. When she left, she took her sink in one of the back break rooms that she had installed with her. It was glorious. Take everything with you when you leave a job. Know your job wants the same from you. J. Thomas 287 said. One of my clients, a restaurant, rented their space. The owner was selling the building but wouldn't sell to them. When the appraiser came, they told him to appraise the building with none of the kitchen stuff, hoods, sinks, freezer, and so on, because it was all going with them. They took everything down they ever put up, except the paint. And with that, we wrap up today's stories. Thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end. These situations were messy, intense, and in some cases honestly unbelievable, but they're also a reminder of why boundaries, self-respect, and standing your ground matter so much. And as always, if you want more stories like these, you know what to do. See you in the next one.